Hello, Year 3. Just to help some people that may find it slightly more difficult to read the chapter, I'm actually going to read chapter 1 for you. Now, lots of you will probably be able to read the chapter by yourselves and answer the questions, but if you do find it slightly more difficult or you maybe get stuck on a certain part, I'm going to read the chapter for you to help you answer those questions. Chapter 1, The Chestnut Tree. Sprog was 4 and William was 7, and their new house had only just been built. But the tree at the bottom of the garden was 100 years old. It was the biggest tree Sprog had ever seen. The day they moved into the house, he went down the garden and stood underneath the big, spreading branches, staring up and up. William followed Sprog down the garden, but he didn't waste any time staring. As soon as he saw the tree, he yelled, "Dada, come and look! We can have a tree house!" Their father bounded down the garden, just like William, only twice as fast. But when he saw the tree, he stopped very still. "It's a sweet chestnut tree," he said softly. "Next winter we can roast chestnuts together, the way I did with my dad." William wasn't interested in chestnuts. "What about the tree house?" Dada grinned and studied the tree. "It looks perfect. The platform could go there, where the branches divide, and maybe the removal men could sell me a tea chest to make a little cabin at one end." "And can we have a ladder?" William said, bouncing up and down with excitement. "Don't see why not." Dada pulled a bit of paper out of his pocket and began to sketch the shape of the tree. The cabin could go there. William's eyes gleamed. "Could you cut windows in it?" "Of course. And Mum might make you some curtains." Sprog looked up at the bare, wintry tree and imagined it all. The branches would rustle round the tree house, and when the leaves grew, they would hide it. "Can we really have one?" he whispered. "Really?" Dada looked down and smiled. "Not straight away. There's wallpapering to do first and shelves to put up. But I won't forget. We'll make it in the summer." They planned it in the evenings. Sometimes Dada had to go away to work, but whenever he was at home, he got out the treehouse drawings before Sprog and William went to bed. The four of them sat round deciding how to paint the little cabin and what to do with the rest of the platform. William was impatient. "All we ever do is talk about it. Why can't we make it?" "Everything's got to be planned," Mum said. "Look at those shelves I put up yesterday. If I hadn't planned them properly, they'd have fallen down by now." "The treehouse will never fall down," William said darkly, "because it's never going to be built." Dada growled at him. "Don't nag. I'll build it when the fine weather comes." Sprog didn't nag, but when William was at school and he was all on his own, he went into the garage to look at the tea chest that was going to be the cabin. He ran his fingers along the pale, smooth planks Dada had brought for the floor, and he wished. Then one day, in the middle of July, Dada came home early. He kissed Sprog, winked, and disappeared into the garage. When Sprog and Mum set off to fetch William from school, they heard loud sawing noises. Sprog squeezed Mum's hand and looked up at her. He was too excited to say anything, but she understood. She smiled down at him and squeezed back. When they got home again, there was a metal ladder propped against the chestnut tree. Dada was up in the branches with the floor planks, hammering. William dropped his lunchbox by the gate and ran straight down the garden. "Fantastic! Can I come up and look?" Dada stuck his head between the long, jagged leaves and growled his terrible, ferocious monster growl. "If any boys come up this ladder, I'll eat them with mustard." William danced round the tree. "What about the cabin and our wooden ladder? You haven't forgotten, have you?" There were no answers, only growls and hammering. Sprog pulled at Mum's sleeve. "Can we have our drinks in the garden?" Mum chuckled. "I'll bring them out. Don't let William get in Dada's hair." She picked up the lunchbox and disappeared into the house, and Sprog ran down the garden. William was at the bottom of the ladder, with one foot on the first rung. Sprog wondered how he would stop him if he really started to climb. It was all right. The ferocious monster stuck its head out of the tree again and grinned. "What are you waiting for? Come up carefully." William was up the ladder in a flash. Sprog went more slowly, holding on hard with both hands. "It's brilliant," William shouted. "Look, Sprog." Sprog hauled himself up and looked round, and his mouth fell open. He was on the wide platform in the very centre of the tree, hidden by long, jagged leaves. All around were long yellow catkins like furry caterpillars. "It's wonderful," he whispered, and then the phone rang. It was down at the bottom of the tree, lying on the lid of the toolbox. Dada swung himself onto the ladder. "Stay here, you two," he said. "Don't move an inch, or I'll fry you for breakfast." He rattled down the ladder, picked up the phone, and grinned. "Hi, Dennis." By the time he rang off, Mum was coming, with 4 mugs on a tray. Dada bounded up the garden towards her, grinning wildly. "Emma, I've got the American contract." Mum took a deep breath and put the tray down. "That's wonderful. How long is it for, and when do you have to leave?" "I leave the day after tomorrow." Dada grabbed a mug from the tray. "For 6 months." Sprague blinked. He didn't understand, but William did. He went bright red. "You can't go. You haven't made our tree house." Dada stopped smiling. "I've got to go, Will. It's work." "It's stupid work," shouted William. "Change your job." "You don't need to fuss," Mum said. "I can finish the treehouse for you." William looked sulky. "Dada's doing it, he promised." Dada sighed. "Look, I have to go. But suppose I fix the tea chest up here tonight. Then you'll have a cabin." "What about the windows?" said William. "And the door?" "I'll make those when I come back." Sprague twisted one of the long yellow catkins round his finger. "Summer will be over by then." "You can play in the treehouse without windows and doors," Dada said gently. "I'll send you other things instead. How about that? A treehouse parcel every month." "Promise," said William. "Promise," said Dada. Sprague let go of the catkin and watched it drop to the ground. "Will you be back in time to roast the chestnuts?" he said. That's the end of the first chapter. So once you've listened to that, hopefully now you can have a go at trying to answer some of those questions.